Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Jonny Lipsham.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Songwriting Simplified on this fantastic Wednesday evening in the middle of February. So we are here again without Jonny. Unfortunately, this time it's due to the fact that he has no power, so he can't run his studio. So no power means I'm here and it's just me. So and given that there are sections across the United States where power is out and you are on rolling blackouts, we may be a little lower on numbers than we would normally be. So for that reason, we may keep it a shorter show maybe tonight. We'll see. Let me just go and just make one little change to something. Hang on. That button? No, it's not that one. Here it is. All right, there we go. Sorry, I was just adjusting my mic level in OBS because it was just like it looked like it was a little bit on the lower side than it normally is. So there we go. All right, folks. So welcome. Sorry about that. Sorry about the small delay in getting started. There was a reason for that, and that reason was simply that OBS was not behaving itself, but it's all fine now. So there we go. So Songwriting Simplified. So I spoke to Jonny about 2 hours ago, and he was hoping that he would have power, and he said, I don't have any power, so I guess you're going to have to do the show on your own. So I'm kind of here with not really a whole lot of a plan, to be honest, but there are a few things. Hey, Bobby Booth, I'm glad you're here. And I know that you're one of those that's in the area where there may be a blackout. And if there is, go with our blessing and have a nice evening. And maybe see if you can catch the replay if you get the chance to. So there are a couple of things I did want to kind of talk about for songwriting. So we will do that, and then I'm going to take your questions. So there's a couple of things that I think are more tips than anything else that I think will help you. Doesn't really matter what style of music you write in, and it may well be orchestral music, it may well be pop music, it may well be rock, whatever it is. These couple of things are going to help you kind of form the bedrock of your songs and your compositions and your arrangements. So that's kind of what we're here for at Songwriting Simplified. You know, it is songwriting, but we don't just limit it to songwriting. I'm happy to include, composing instrumental music and writing arrangements for of existing pieces of music for, other ensembles, like, doing a big band arrangement of a popular song, for example. I've done plenty of those in my time. I've done a lot of big band arrangements of contemporary popular songs that have been in the charts. Did a Lady Gaga song a while back for a big band, and it was great fun to do, and the band absolutely nailed it when they performed it, and it went down an absolute storm. So, it can be done, and it can be done successfully. So, I'm happy to kind of broaden the scope of what we talk about here. So, what is the kind of the two things? The first thing is a musical concept called ostinato. What is ostinato? Well, if you don't know what it is, then listen up. But if you do know what it is, you can kind of sit back and relax and chill because you have the inside knowledge, and you can kind of, put your hands behind your head and just like nod appreciatively that you already know this information. So an ostinato is a repeated rhythmic or melodic cell or phrase that you repeat over and over and over again throughout either a section of your piece of music or all the way through it. It might go all the way through from start to finish. So, examples of ostinatos. There are lots of them, particularly if you're into film scores. It's something that John Williams uses a lot of. Like if you listen to the Indiana Jones film scores, there's lots of ostinatos, lots of repeating rhythms, repeating patterns that happen. Also, if you listen to the music of Gustav Holst, particularly the Planet Suite, if you have ever heard that. If you've never heard the Planet Suite, you've got to sit and listen to it. Don't just kind of, stick the CD on or the MP3 on and just kind of passively listen to it. No. Sit down and listen deep into the music. And particularly in Mars, the first movement is a 9-movement piece. But if you listen to the first movement, Mars, it features this constant rhythm that goes through most of the piece. And there are points where the rhythm stops and everything kind of goes almost as if there is no rhythm for certain sections of it, and then it comes back again. So it's something that is a thing that keeps coming back over and over again. But the rhythm for that is it's in 5/4 with the triplet figure on the first beat of the bar. Now, you may not be into classical music at all, and you're probably thinking, how does this apply to me? I write rock music. Well, you can use these similar kind of rhythmic cells to create a really interesting piece of music, to create something repetitive that the listener can really lock their ears into. And that forms the bedrock of everything that then goes on over the top of it. That's really what an ostinato does. It creates a bedrock for other things to sit on the top of. So we're going to look at a couple of examples of that. Another good example, as Bob Studios points out, is the Total Recall film score. Lots of repetition and lots of ostinatos occur there. They don't have to just be a rhythmic thing. They can be a melodic thing as well. So you can have a recurring figure that is repeated throughout a section over and over again with other things going on top of it or underneath it. Like, for example, you could have like a figure that just plays one note really high up, whilst underneath you have the chords changing with this note on the top playing the same repeated figure. In some ways, that could also be regarded as a pedal point, an inverse pedal point. A pedal point, generally speaking, is a low note. So, I could have like this. The pedal point is this C here with the chords changing over the top of it. But you can have an inverse pedal point where, it's up here. So the note in this particular case here was not changing. It was the same note, and I was just changing the chords underneath it. It doesn't have to be one note. You can make it into a little kind of something like that, and that kind of might have a little bit more of a kind of Latin or a Brazilian feel. That then you have like, a bit more of a kind of thing going on in the bass with on the top of it. So those kind of things, they crop up in Brazilian music a lot, and therefore they also crop up in jazz. They also crop up in rock and pop music as well. So ostinatos are really, really important. So yeah, I'm going to come on to your questions in just a few minutes. So I have a little example that I was actually using this afternoon with a customer in tech support, where they said that they had a problem with input quantize. So I basically just knocked up this little 8-bar riff, just using the input quantize as I went. And actually, I didn't need to quantize anything. This guy was saying that quantizing was just shifting everything all over the place and made it unusable. And so I knocked this up to basically test his problem. Could not, for the life of me, reproduce it. But I did come up with this interesting example, and I thought, actually, this might be useful. And I'm kind of right, I think. All right, so here it is. I need to turn the click track off, and I need to go over to Studio One so you guys can see it. All right, so here we go. This is another use of ostinato. In this case, the ostinato is in this keyboard part that's at the top here. And then you've got drums, and then you've got a bass part underneath it, which kind of has a different kind of figure all of its own. Check this out, though. All right, so I think you get the idea here. So the ostinato is this guy here in this particular case. So in this particular case, it is a rhythmic ostinato because it's following the chord changes as it goes. So the notes are changing, and the harmonic content is changing, but the rhythm is staying the same. So in this particular case, it's a rhythmic ostinato, and this is what you find quite common in Brazilian music, because a lot of the different percussion parts are all ostinatos of their own, and you can have 10, 15, 20 different ostinatos happening all at the same time, from the surdo pattern on, and the surdo is kind of like a big kind of, it looks kind of like a bass drum, but it's called a surdo, and from that surdo pattern that is played on up to the clave pattern that is played on two pieces of wood which you strike together called claves. And, you know, all of these little ostinatos are repeated over and over and over and over and over and over again by the musicians, but they all fit together. So Brazilian music is something to really check out. Check out some mambo or some samba music, or some frevo is another good way to find different ostinato patterns that you can just liberally just listen to these different Brazilian musics and then just borrow some of those ideas, some of those concepts, like the Son Montuno piano concept. For a start, if I switch back to my camera, here we go. The Son Montuno piano concept is often also an ostinato, occasionally played kind of in like 2 octaves apart, and quite often it's created by playing arpeggios. and so on and so forth. I think you get the idea. But there's another example of a different way in which you can create an ostinato pattern and have it be really, really effective. Now, if you're coming from a kind of classical point of view, a post-romantic classical point of view, obviously, because that's the period in which we live in musically, then, you know, you're not necessarily going to use Brazilian patterns. You're not necessarily going to use something that's, you know, a little bit kind of on the kind of funk side of things, which is what you just heard there in the Studio One example. But certainly you can make use of ostinato patterns. Now, it could be that you just, you know, you come up with something that, let me switch over to a conventional piano. You know, you may come up with something that has just a bit more of a traditional, you know, maybe a more simple rhythm to it. Like, you know, if you want to do something that has a slightly Celtic feel to it, you know, kind of using either Dorian or Mixolydian modes. You know, let's say we try Dorian. And kind of your ostinato is just these two notes, really. And we kind of moved away from the Celtic thing and kind of into Mississippi Delta blues there, but that's just kind of habit more than anything else. But I think you get the idea that, you know, you can create different kinds of ostinatos. You know, you could go. In kind of like low brass with, you know, kind of, yes, so low brass like tubas, trombones, and maybe some low woodwinds as well. So like bass clarinets, bassoons, you could have doing this. Regular clarinets, but in their shallow mode register, which is the lower register of the clarinets, kind of all playing this. And then you could have like a melody on top of that played by, you know, like a flute or a couple of flutes, maybe first violins, and maybe a piccolo on top if you want to double it up the octave as well. And you could just create something, you know, nice, and then a nice little kind of melodic figure up here, and then kind of answer that maybe with French horns or something like that. That's just kind of things that are just kind of like writing themselves in my mind at the moment. And you could just create something quite cool just using a simple rhythmic figure down low that creates a nice little bed for, you know, melodic ideas to be tossed around your orchestra or the orchestration that you're working with in a call and response kind of effect. And you can create a really interesting piece of music doing that. And that may constitute one section of your work. And then you would contrast that by having another section, a B section or something like that, that doesn't use ostinato. It, you know, it's a little bit more straight ahead maybe. And then you come back to the ostinato idea because your audience is already engaged with that, particularly if you've started off with it. So I hope that's given you a couple of different ideas that you can use for ostinatos. They are really, really, really useful. I make use of ostinatos a lot for different things and different styles of music. So make use of those and have fun with them. Develop your own. Borrow from other styles of music. Fuse different styles of music together. If you're writing orchestral stuff, bring in some Brazilian ideas. Bring in some modal jazz ideas. You know, have just have fun. Jonny Gibe, you lunatic. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate that more than you know, my friend. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're able to watch. I presume you're watching on your iPad or something like that, without any power. So ostinatos, really, really, really useful ideas, useful concept to get making music with. Okay, I'm gonna go and check out some of your comments on this before we move any further forward. Remember, if you want something that is a question that you want to grab my attention with, then please type at Jonny Lipsham Studios. That gives me the red box, and I know it's a question, and I can just pick that out from the chat really, really easily. So I would appreciate that. Let's go back and see. David Anthony says, good morning. Hope you're all doing well. I'm ready for more education. Hey, you know what I didn't do? I didn't go through the list of who's here. I'm a naughty boy. Bolero by Ravel is another example. John Edgar, you are a very smart guy, because that what the heck is the Bolero rhythm? Dun 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 dun. That goes all the way through the whole piece, all the way to the end on a snare drum. And it's picked up by different instruments as you go through, because it's the beauty of the Ravel piece of Bolero is it's typical of the style. If you're wondering what Bolero is, it's a Spanish and or Italian, I think it's kind of both, dance. And the dance it starts simple and it becomes more and more complex until you reach a climactic point, which is what the music does, what Ravel's Bolero does. It starts really, really simple, with very thin texture and simple orchestration, and it gradually adds layers and layers and layers and new instruments coming in as you proceed through the work. But the one constant is that dun 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 dun. You know how I know that so well? I played that in an orchestra, and that was all I had to do for that entire piece. Dun 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 dun. The thing with it is you have to start it really, really, really quiet on the snare drum, which takes a lot of control. And then when you get to the end of it, you are absolutely smacking the snare drum, and you've got bass drum, you've got a flipping massive gong that's being rolled on. It's awesome. You've got a pipe organ as well at the end. The pipe organ only comes in for the last 4 bars of the whole piece. It's amazing. Anyway, enough waxing lyrical about that song. But yes. Let's go see questions. A chorus repeated 5 times over the course of a song is an example of an ostinato. Not quite. Not quite. That is just a repeated section of music, not necessarily an ostinato. An ostinato is something that goes like either all the way through the whole piece of music, or is a feature, a repeated motif in the whole section of your piece of music. So a chorus isn't quite the same kind of thing, but I see where you're getting that from. Martin says, so an ostinato is a loop more or less. Kind of, yeah, it is kind of a loop. It's repeated over and over again. And occasionally is added to, by additive rhythm or subtractive rhythm. It can be foreshortened as well, without really losing the impact of the ostinato. Bolero is a great example, though. So Martin says, if say a string section plays the same riff but alters the riff to a slightly higher or lower key but repeats the pattern, is that ostinato? Yeah, if you're talking rhythmic, which is kind of what I did with the Studio One example, where the harmonic content changed but the rhythmic content did not. It had the same had that same rhythm going all the way through it. Now, if you were talking about strings, you could go. You could legitimately do that. The rhythm is what makes the ostinato. It doesn't have to be a melodic motif, but it can be. You can have that totally, Son Montuno style that I played a little bit earlier, You can absolutely do something like that. So it's more, in that sense, a little bit more melodic. But the whole thing with the Son Montuno is it's meant to be in the background. It's meant to be an accompaniment to the melody that goes on the top. So, you're not really hammering out that ostinato in that particular context. But yes, good explanation. The outro to Bohemian Rhapsody would be a good example of ostinato. There are sections of Bohemian Rhapsody that would certainly have that, for sure, in places, but they don't do it consistently throughout the piece. Mika says, would you mind if I borrowed that demonstration? Yep. Just make sure to say copyright Jonny Lipsham Studios at the end of it, and that's cool. Let's see, what else do we have? R.I.P. Chick. Yes, Chick Corea died just last week, which is very, very sad because he was definitely one of my heroes. Let's see. Johnny's been wrapping his pipes. Let's see what the chat jumped. Okay. At this point, I think I'm going to go and grab a few more red box questions. All right. So DJ Vivaldi, I think it's the first one I'm seeing. If it's not the first one, I apologize, but it's the first one that I'm seeing here. He says, in what tone do you feel and compose best? In what tone? I'm not really sure what you mean by in what tone. Do you mean by what mood do I compose best? Do you mean, do I prefer composing things that are dark or things that are bright? Dark being... that's kind of dark and sad and, or do I prefer writing bright things? Sometimes I like to write happy stuff. Sometimes I like to write dark stuff. It kind of depends. It depends on a variety of factors. I'll be honest. It depends upon a variety of factors, whether I'm writing bright stuff, happy stuff, or dark stuff. And it doesn't necessarily depend upon my personal mood at the time. It may well be that's just kind of where things take me when I start thinking about music. Because just to kind of be kind of clear and give you kind of like disclosure here. I don't compose like most people do. I don't write music. I don't write songs the way that most people do. Most people sit down at an instrument with a notepad. I don't do that. The writing process takes place up here, long before I've even sat down at an instrument. Sitting down at the instrument is, for me, stage 2. Stage 1 happens up here in my head. And in my head, 95% of the music is worked out and composed up here. And then I move on to stage 2, and stage 2 really is fleshing that out. Putting skin, bones, flesh on what is already up here. So pretty much in my head is the finished article. I know exactly what the final production sounds like in my head. And really, it's a case of just getting what's in my head into Studio One. It's like transcribing, to be honest. So I don't really approach songwriting or composing in the same way that most people do. So it doesn't depend upon my mood. It doesn't depend upon external forces or external influences particularly. It's kind of like the music just starts working itself out in my head, and then I go with it. Or I go, no, that's crap, let's try something else. And I start thinking something else. I start dreaming something else up. And that's really how it works for me. I get that most people don't work like that. Most people, it's about sitting down at an instrument, either a keyboard or with their guitar, and they start strumming some chords, and they go from there. And they start humming a bit of a melody line that works with those chords. And you find something that you like through exploration. And in that context, maybe your personal mood, how you feel on the day that you sit down to write your music, has some bearing upon how the music goes or what comes out at the end of the writing session. For me, it's a bit different because for me, I'm writing about characters and stories, and I put people in situations. I create these characters and I put them in these situations, and then I see what happens to them. I see how they interact with each other, and that's kind of where it goes. So that, to a degree, dictates whether the song is going to be dark or whether it's going to be, bright and upbeat. Really, what's going to happen with these particular characters? How are they going to fare together? And it might be more than one character, or it might be more than two characters. They're not necessarily relational songs. Sometimes they are. Sometimes, I have written songs about kind of relationships and tension within relationships. Like, I wrote a song that was all about, for a previous record, I wrote a song that was all about a guy who had rescued a prostitute from her prostitution and decided that the best thing for him to do was to marry her so that she could come out of the prostitution. And at the start of their marriage, she was still kind of working in that field whilst, but she was being gradually pulled out of it by him. And so kind of I decided I was going to, kind of these two characters, the scenario was it was going to be written from his point of view. So what he goes through when she goes out to work, what does he go through? What's going through his mind? What's going through his heart? Knowing what she's doing for those, several hours. And so I wanted to write it from his perspective and explore the tensions that go on there. And it was really, for me, that song was a song about redemptive love, that this guy was seeking to redeem her, and seeking to, to make everything right for her where life maybe had gone quite wrong for her. So yeah, that was what that song was all about. Now, there's a lot of dark things going on in that story. There's what she's doing, how he feels about it. I could have made that a really dark sounding song, but I chose to make the music kind of juxtapose the lyrics a little bit without divorcing the two. And so writing that way is a little bit more of a challenge. But yeah, so I'm kind of not really sure what you're meaning by what tone. But maybe you're talking about key signatures. I'm not entirely sure. I mean the scales. Oh, scales. Again, that kind of depends. Sometimes I set out deliberately, what's going on in my head is very definitely a Lydian thing, in which case I'm writing using the white keys from F to F. So you have this whole tone kind of thing at the start. Rather than conventional F major scale, it has this B natural instead, which kind of gives it this kind of whimsical kind of it's kind of a little bit mysterious. So for that you can kind of do. You can have like an F major going to G major over the top of the F. You can play around with that kind of idea quite a lot. But yeah, for me, scales and chords, they're all tools, really. They're, it's, when you're building a house, you're setting out to build a particular house. It doesn't really matter how the house gets built, providing it gets built and it's solid and stable and secure and follows the blueprint. And for me, that's how songwriting works. The blueprint is up here, and providing all the tools that I have at my disposal, such as chord changes, harmony, harmonic concepts, harmonic devices, rhythmic devices, melodic, motivic ideas, all of those things at my disposal, scales for making melody or improvising on, kind of all of those things are tools. So I don't really have a particular preference for a particular, I keep hitting the mic, for a particular scale or anything like that. It's kind of what's going to serve the song the best. And in some cases, that kind of Lydian thing is going to serve the song best. On another occasion, it might be the whole tone scale might fit. If I'm going to be writing something mysterious, then maybe the whole tone scale is perfect for that. And I have written works where actually there was one piece I wrote years ago, like in the early 1990s, which was not using the whole tone scale. It was using the diminished whole tone scale, which is kind of like the D flat melodic minor scale, but starting it on the leading tone, on C. Which has its own kind of weird kind of darkness to it. Really handy for improvising on you can use that diminished whole tone scale on a G7 chord, for example. But you start that diminished whole tone scale on the G. And it works really, really nicely. But yeah, those are all tools, man, for making music. I don't really have a favorite in that sense. Okay, Jonny is out of cell phone power. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you for coming. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh gosh, we've got lots of questions. I'm gonna have to try and get through these quickly. An acoustic guitar, kind of mostly in D major. Yeah, maybe sometimes. Let's see. Marcos just came to say hello. Hello, Marcos. Boss Caesar says, I find the idea first, then try to transfer the idea, usually through lyrics and poetry. Cool. That is definitely a legit way to write songs. Gerard says, I have perfect pitch, and I can figure out parts in my head, and I hear songs in my head in the same key they're recorded in. Yeah, that's my experience as well. I have perfect pitch. Now, there is an interesting thing, is that as you get older, you can actually lose your perfect pitch. So enjoy it whilst you have it, is all I will say. You know, once you get past, I think, once you get past 40, 45, 50, there's considerable research that suggests you can start to actually lose your perfect pitch. And there have been studies that show this to be the case. But yes, all of my music is done in my head, usually at the most inopportune time of night. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, DJ Vivaldi saying the same thing. Cool. Can you share a link to that song? It's very, very, very out of print. Doesn't exist anymore. Well, it does exist, but you can't download it. You can't buy it anymore, is what I'm trying to say. Let's see. Dorian is usually where I start writing, only because you can sing well in D. Okay, cool. It is a good place to start. Dorian mode is good. Jura says, check out Beethoven's 7th Symphony. It has that bass pattern, and it's in the key of A minor. Yep. And the 5th, that has the 4-note pattern. Yes, the 5th Symphony that has the da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. That is another use of, it's kind of, is it really an ostinato? Not really sure whether it is, in the case of Beethoven's 5th Symphony, whether it's an ostinato or not. I think in that case, it might be just a simple motif that is repeated, because it actually gets tossed around the orchestra and it gets extended. It gets added to and it gets contracted as well in different places. But and there's points where you get some counterpoint. You get 2 or 3 different instruments. First violins, violas, and cellos. They're kind of playing the same that kind of thing. So they're cascading one into the other. But it's that is definitely a very, very simple, it's a really, really simple little motif. Really great little idea. And essentially Beethoven, being the genius that he is able to write an entire symphony based on 2 notes. That's impressive. Don't care who you are, that's impressive. Being able to write an entire symphonic work that is, a 35 to 40 minute long piece in several movements and base the whole thing out of 2 notes. That's pretty awesome. I challenge anybody to be able to do that. DJ Vivaldi with the awesome donation. I'm not quite sure how much that is worth in either dollars or pounds, but that is pretty awesome nonetheless. Thank you very much for the very kind and very generous donation. That's awesome. Thank you. Let's see how long we got left. Okay, I need to rush through these now. Kevin's Guitar Story says, a song you wrote about the guy that marries the hooker. Yeah, I can't, unfortunately. Let me see. What can I do? What can I do to help you people? Let's see. See if I can find an MP. Do I have a rough mix of it on this computer? Do I? I'm not really sure. Let's go look over here. Documents. Not in there. Let's try in here. Music. I can play you a little bit of this. Let's see. I can play you a little bit of this particular song that I was talking about the hooker. See if you guys actually get to hear it. price, but I could never walk away. For my love comes from above. My Chanel, do you not know? No matter where you go, we'll walk hand in hand into our promised land. You open the door. All right, there you go, and that's on a record of mine called "Belonging to Tomorrow," which was the EP that I released in 2016. So. Yeah, I've not really made much music in the last few years. I put out a single most years, but not really a full record. So it's about darn time I did, really. But yeah, there you go. That's that song about the guy that marries the lady of the night, shall we say. And I decided to make it into a blues with a bit of a shuffle beat because I thought, hey, kind of a dark subject with dark things going on between these two characters. Let's kind of juxtapose that, and that is my sense of humor at play there. So there you go. Bob Studio says I like the D minor scale to run harmonies. Yeah, D minor scale is very nice for that. John says sing an A and then hit the keyboard. I'm not a performing monkey, I'm afraid, John, but yes. Let's see. DJ says, can you present your instruments in the studio? Not quite sure what you mean by can I present my instruments in the studio. Yeah, not 100% sure what you mean by that. And yes, NASA's Perseverance rover lands on Mars on Thursday. Write some music. Absolutely. Yeah, currently my Time to Turn EP is not for sale, but I'm looking at being able to fix that. It was being sold on a platform that no longer exists, so I have to figure out how to get it onto a new platform. So yeah, that's kind of the thing there. All right, we've got about 6 minutes left of the show. You should have hired Bernard Purdy. Yeah, if I could afford Bernard Purdy, you bet your life, mate, I would have hired him. Absolutely. He's one of my favorite drummers of all time. No doubt about that. Let's see, what else do we have? Have I missed anything? Have I missed anything? Because there are quite a few things going on here. What is your go-to key to write in? John Edgar asks. Great question. I have written in lots of different keys. I've written in some weird keys just because I can and because not a lot of people write in weird keys. For example, I have written in E flat minor. E flat minor is a really dark sounding key, but it sounds kind of cool as well. Let's see. So if you listen to E flat major, kind of sounds nice and regal and stately, you know. Kind of does sound kind of regal and stately. But E flat minor, on the other hand, of sounds dark in a way that the E flat major key doesn't really, you know, the contrast is pretty big, you know, between the and there was kind of a song that kind of came to mind a little bit there, which I was trying to avoid playing because I don't want a copyright strike. Thank you very much. Let's see, what else do we have? Good question though, that one. So I guess the answer is I don't really have a go-to key. I like to explore different keys, particularly, and maybe this is because I am ever so slightly musically perverse, I like to explore keys that nobody else does. You know, like most people, they will write in D, or they will write in G, or they'll write in A, or E. You know, those are the kind of keys that most people write in for popular music. So why the heck are all these other keys being ignored, like D flat, you know, hey. You know, it's a great sounding key. It's lovely. Bit tricky to play in, but it's fun to try. Or even G flat major, you know. Kind of good for kind of a gospel thing, I guess. But yeah, I don't really have a go-to key particularly, to be honest. But yes, I have written in C as well, but it's actually really weird when you decide that you have all 12 major and all 12 minor keys available to you to write in, not just the 4 that most people do. Most people then go, hey, let's not bother with C because C is kind of boring, or at least that's the idea. Most people think, hey, the key of C is just a little bit boring, not very interesting. It's actually a lot more interesting than you think. You can have lots and lots of fun, and you'll probably recognize the gospel tune I was playing there with that. Alrighty, John says that he loves Deceptive Cadences. Yes, I use them all the time. I'll give you an example of where I used it, and that's in a song called Paper Deity, where, you know, we kind of come out of the end of the chorus. Hang on, let me go and get the chord changes. Over here somewhere. There's so much junk in this book, man. I can't find the chord changes to it. Pretty sure it's in this book. And I've just forgotten where it is. Where are you, chord changes? Definitely in this book. I just can't remember where they are. Here we go. Found it. Found it and thrown it on the floor. Here we go. Got them. Let's put those up there for a second. All right, so Paper Deity. And the chorus is really simple. Kind of a bluesy thing in D. And then you think you're going to go back to that kind of D thing, but you don't. Instead, I just jump to the key of E. Wait, hang on. And then I start this big build up. And you think you're going back to the key of D, but you don't, you go to E flat. You know, it's just kind of like I can't even remember the little riff that I had for that. Oh, here it is. And I had like this whole little section, and I had to figure out how do I get back to the key of D so that I can start the final chorus. So yeah, page 45. Yes, it actually was page 2, not 45. But yeah, I have this little notepad. You know, I was talking about phase 1 of my songwriting process is done up here. This is where stage 2 is done. Notepad. And that makes sure that there is kind of a very early on record of the song in its rawest format. And then from there, it goes into Studio One after that. But yeah, there's all sorts of deceptive cadences there in that whole thing, because there's the F over A to G over B. And then I'm using the B as the I guess the launch point, because it leads naturally to E to take me to the key of E from the key of D. And that kind of works. And then from there we go. So if we're in the key of E now, we go chord 1, chord 3, chord 5, and then flat 6, back to 1, then 2, and then flat 3 to 4, except we're going to the key of D now, so that would be well, we would be going to D, so that would be a 4 and a 5, but we don't, we go to E flat. So I'm kind of leading you up the garden path and then taking you off in a completely different direction. It's one of my favorite little tricks to do. So yeah, so that's a lot of fun to do. All right, I think we're done for the night. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming in. I appreciate it. I know some of you have been here and you've not had any electricity, and I'm sorry about that. I hope that your power is restored soon, and stay warm if you are in the area where you have well below freezing temperatures. And I will see you guys on Sunday right back here for Sunday Night Live. Don't know what I'm going to talk about yet on Sunday Night Live, but if there is a particular burning issue or a question that you want featured in Sunday's show, drop me an email to Jonny at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk and just put the subject as Sunday Night Live, and then just tell me what it is that you want addressed on that particular show. So please get that done, and I will see you on Sunday. Good night, everybody. I need to press that button and that one.
I can't wait for when you're home. There'll be wine and sweet recline. Close my eyes, see the sailors spend their pay. My heart cries, but I could never walk away. For my love comes from above. My Chanel, do you not know? No matter where you go, we'll walk hand in hand into our promised land. You open the door, and my world fills up with light. I'm sliced to the core, but I'm gonna do what's right. We'll drink wine, everything's just fine. My Chanel, do you not know? No matter where you go, we'll walk hand in